So I've been running blogs for a bunch of years now, and I have helped a lot of people to get more traffic to their websites. And there's always one question that repeats all the time, and that is, why is my site not growing faster? And why am I not making any money with it? And I can tell you that in 99% of these cases, there's just one huge mistake that the site owner or the blogger or the content creator, whatever, is making. And in this video, I will show you exactly what it is and, more importantly, how to overcome that issue. And by the way, this video is sponsored by SEMrush. I will talk about them a bit later. Okay, so let's get right into it. So the biggest issue I see bloggers make is that they are missing a content gap. This is literally the most important thing when it comes to starting a successful blog or doing SEO or even doing YouTube videos. You have to find a content gap. And now I will show you what I mean by this. So let's say that there is a topic and we can represent the topic with this circle. And now there is a huge audience that has gathered together, well, not together, but they have gathered to the internet to find information about this new topic. They are asking questions related to it, but there's nobody covering this new topic. And this is what a content gap is. So you would literally want to join as one of the first comers ever into this particular topic or into this particular space, so that most of these people who have questions related to that something would land on your website. So you can imagine that there are, let's say, 1,000 people interested in your topic, and if there are only 3 bloggers or content creators sharing information about this topic, you can instantly tell that you're going to get a lot of traffic. But once you get all these competitors into the scene, that is, you might end up with a situation where you have 1,000 people in the audience and you might have 1,000 people creating content about the topic, then you're late to the party, because obviously you will get no traffic anymore, because there are more sources of information and valuable websites related to the topic than there are people interested in it. And this is absolutely huge. And one of the biggest things about this is that most of the topics on the internet fall into this category of no content gap. In other words, you should not write blog posts or do SEO in most industries or niches out there. In fact, I would say that 99% of the blog post topics and niche ideas are absolute garbage because they are saturated to their fullest. And now let's go through this. So as I said, if you don't have a content gap, you're not going to see results. But now it's easy for me to just say find a content gap. So let me actually show you what I mean by this. So the first thing you need to pay attention to when you start a website, when you do SEO, when you do YouTube videos, when you do a blog post, whatever content you create, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that if the information already exists, why would you write a blog post about it? There is already a perfect answer. For instance, if somebody is searching for something like what is the capital of France, the answer is Paris, and that has existed on the internet for nearly 30 years now. So why on earth would you write a blog post that answers this age-old question? Well, that's obvious. You shouldn't do that. But it is less obvious in topics where you have more than just one sentence to say. So that brings me to the next point. And I will, by the way, show you some concrete examples, but that brings me to the next point, which is that don't write just another blog post. So even if you could write an epic piece of content, use some fancy words, add some crazy good quality images and whatnot, if the perfect answer or if the perfect source of information already exists, you are not going to outrank them on Google search results because they came first. So you have to do something different. And it's not just that you use different words or you use some different images or different AI prompts, but you need to find something that nobody has covered yet, or where the coverage is so poor that you can improve it drastically. And now let me show you an example. So let's say that we have searched for best tennis shoes on Google, and this is our first result. Let me actually deactivate this because this is just a sample post that I wrote. But nonetheless, if you search for best tennis shoes and you find a blog post like this at the top of the Google search results, where you can clearly see that it's a pretty short blog post where you don't have any images, you just have these short bulleted lists and a short mention of each racket, you can clearly see that, okay, this is something I can improve upon drastically. So instead of just listing this, which is something that you could do with AI, or you could do this by hiring somebody for like $15, you should actually go out there and buy and test every single one of these shoes, and then add video clips of yourself trying those, add images, add some tips related to the performance, related to maintaining those, pricing information, alternatives, discount codes, whatever you can imagine that would make this blog post really the ultimate guide to the best tennis shoes. If you are starting a blog and you find a topic that you want to write about, and if the answer to this question, that is, can anyone do your job easily, is yes, then there is no content gap and there is no competitive advantage, and you should ditch that idea immediately. And also, in a similar fashion, if the AI can fully answer your question, such as a question about what is the capital of France, or something similar to that, there is absolutely no reason for you to write a blog post about it, because that has been covered and even the AI can do the job. So you need to provide something, you need to add something new to the internet to make it count. If you just repeat what already exists, if you just talk about the same topics that people have been talking about for years, you will get no traffic to your website whatsoever. So let's open up this blog post that I have written almost a year ago now. And if we start to look through this blog post, you can see that it's listing these AI products, and here is a simple list. But once we start to go through this list, you can actually see that it just continues on and on and on and on. And in fact, I have actually spent over $1,000 putting together this article because I have tested every single one of these products. So in fact, writing this blog post was the easy part, but doing the legwork and trying out all these different products was the hard part. I have basically done this 10 times better than anyone else out there. When I wrote this blog post, I just saw that there were posts similar to this, so they had like a couple of hundred words, they just listed those products, but they didn't provide any actual evidence of what is truly the best piece of software for this purpose. But now that I have done this, I'm actually still ranking, even though it's a year-old post, I'm still ranking in the top 5 for this topic, AI headshot generators on Google, and this blog post has tens of thousands of reads. That is because I put in the time, the money and effort into this content, and I also noticed that there is a huge content gap because I was literally the first one ever to try out all these products and to actually spend the time on this. And this is absolutely huge. So if there is no content gap, if you already find, for example, that when you search for something like this, that the top search results look like this, then you're way too late to the party because the content gap has already been filled in. So as I said, if you want to start a successful blog, you need to find a niche that has a huge content gap. And here are some signs to look for. So if you have generic content, AI-produced content, short content that doesn't really answer the question or serve the audience to the best of its ability, that's a sign of a content gap. If that ranks on Google, then you know that, okay, if you make it 10 times better, if you actually put in the time, you will for sure get that #1 spot. Also, if you have a lot of posts where you don't have images or where you have those generic, useless stock photos that everybody uses these days, that is also a sign of a content gap. Then short and shallow posts. So once again, short posts, just a little bit text, no images, just put out there to make money and to rank on Google. That is a sign of a content gap. Also, if you find some new website that is, for instance, a one-person blog that has been started like 6 months ago, 1 year ago, and it's already ranking in the search results, that is a great sign of a content gap, because that tells you that, okay, if they did it, you could do that as well. Also, if the search results on Google just show some simple blog posts or, for instance, forum posts, but there are no advertisements, no search widgets, there are nothing like taking space from these blog posts that would rank, that is also a sign of a content gap. Now, everything that I just showed you is very like vague, and it is all based on your personal opinion. So for somebody, something might be generic, whereas for the others, it could be very high quality, well-written piece of content. So that's why I highly recommend you checking the numbers from actually professional search engine optimization tools, where you can get a clear image of whether there is a content gap or not. And now let me show you what I mean. So here I have opened up SEMrush, and by the way, I have arranged a special 14-day free trial for new users of SEMrush, so you can actually activate that by clicking the link in the description. But nonetheless, now I will show you how to use this tool to find content gaps. So the first thing you want to do is you want to open up SEMrush, then you want to head over to this keyword overview section, and then you can type in something here. For example, let's do fitness. And now this is our blog post topic or a blogging niche. And the higher this keyword difficulty score you see here, the more impossible it is to compete in this space. So basically, now that I have searched for fitness and it's saying that it's 100% very hard to compete in, this basically tells me that there is absolutely no content gap whatsoever, and there is absolutely no chance for you to make any money or to grow any significant audience in this space. And that's simply because it has been around for so long and there are millions of websites competing for these topics. Then one thing you can do is that if this score is high, you can check these keyword ideas section. So these are topics related to, for example, in this case, fitness. So we can open this up and we can also try to find if we find here some of these opportunities where the keyword difficulty score, that is this score right here, is not that high. And unfortunately, in the case of fitness, even some of these ideas here, such as crunch fitness, anytime fitness, these topics here are still super competitive because they are either red or yellow in color, or they are above 50 or above 40 in this competitiveness score. And that tells me that this niche is completely saturated, so you can't even find these subtopics that you could write about to have low competition. So we can do something different. So let's go back to this keyword overview section and let's search for tennis. Well, unfortunately, it once again tells me that this topic is way too competitive to start a website in or to do SEO in. One tip that I can give you is that you can always change the country. So if you don't want to target this in, for instance, English, you can choose something different. For instance, I'm from Finland, so I could do a Finnish tennis website. And actually, by changing the country, you can see that the difficulty went from 100% to only 47%. And it's actually saying that it is still possible. So this is a niche that I could clearly start a website that could do well if I put enough time in it. So a Finnish tennis website. And if I check these keyword ideas, I'm going to find a bunch of green opportunities here on the right. So these are all topics that might be worth targeting. And obviously you need to make sure that these topics make sense to cover. So for instance, it doesn't really make sense for me to write a blog post about a specific tennis arena or center, because that is kind of supposed to be something that they are already ranking for. But the idea is here. So you search for a niche, you find the keyword difficulty score or the competitiveness score, and then you can also check these subcategories in that space. And if you find a lot of green here, values below 40, I would say, then this can be a niche where you could find a lot of success in. And this is the kind of research I do every time before I write a blog post, whether I publish it on Medium or, for example, if I'm starting a new website. I do this research even before making YouTube videos because the same basically applies there. So you have to find a topic where you don't have competition, because it doesn't matter how good of a writer you are. That's just one part of the equation. The most important thing is that you become the key player in the industry that you're writing blog posts in. You want to become the #1 trusted resource. You want to write every single blog post to be 10 times better than what already exists. And that is only possible if the niche is something where you don't have competition at all, where you don't have content, and where the content is so poorly written because there are still not many people realizing the opportunity. And this is always the case. So I have never ever seen a blog do well in a topic that has already been covered. So you can't outsmart the algorithms to think that, okay, all of a sudden you, the new player in the field, would outrank all these big key players that have been doing that for decades with a team and whatnot. So that's just how it works. That is how business works in general. You don't want to start a phone company to compete against Apple. In a very similar fashion, you don't want to start a fitness blog to compete against these huge fitness websites or health-related websites, for example.